Well, hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Blue Outpost Texas Democrats evening. Not a candidate forum this time, but it's an evening on Sunday, November 1st, 2 days before Election Day, the most important election in our lifetime. So you've heard Donald Trump today, if you're watching the news, saying that he's going to declare victory on the 3rd. Here's how we're going to deny him that possibility. The way we're going to do that is that we're going to have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris carry Texas, because when they carry Texas, it's over. It's game over, and it's going to be so close. I have seen polling data to suggest that we can win. It isn't won yet, but we can win. It's very, very close. And so we have to fight and give it everything we've got. Think about what's on the ballot. You know, when Joe launched his campaign in 2019, he said that this is for the soul of the nation. It is for the soul of the nation, and not just any nation. We are the shining city on the hill. We are the nation that everybody looks up to. Lincoln said that it was man's last best hope. It remains that today. If we lose our democracy, if we ascend into this cesspool that Donald Trump has in mind for us of incivility and racism and hate, the rest of the world will surely follow. That makes this the most important election in our lifetimes. And I know that I have said that in the past, but there's no question this is the most important one. And so we have 48 hours, 48 perfectly good hours to get out the vote. So I ask everybody who's listening, have you voted? If you haven't voted right now, don't listen to another word I say. Make your plan to vote. Point number one. Point number two, have you called every person you've ever known? Make a list. Call all of them. Get them on the phone and say, hello, and have you voted? I'm sure that you have. If not, and you'll have a fun conversation and it'll be joyful. And if you find one voter who hasn't voted yet, urge them to go to the polls. Do those things and hold your head high as Texas Democrats. You know, we were part of this bus tour. You probably heard about it in the newspapers, where we had some staffers and some candidates and some elected officials on a Biden bus running around the state. In most parts of the state, it went well. You had some Trumpsters that showed up and made a little bit of noise, but in a couple of parts of the state, they got very, very aggressive, and it was intimidating. And it just shows you how awful things have become because of Trump. And it won't get better. It's not like he'll be a lame duck. I have a feeling it's going to be 4 more years of what we've dealt with. The way I've always looked at Donald Trump is we all make mistakes, right? The fact that he's a truly awful, awful person is not a big surprise, because the world is full of truly awful people. And the fact that we elected a truly awful person, well, everyone makes mistakes. But the fact that we have sustained that truly awful person, and I don't mean Democrats now, I mean Republicans, and I'm talking specifically to John Cornyn and Ted Cruz and Dan Patrick and Greg Abbott and the rest of them, who have no principles in my book. The fact that we have sustained him is what is so damaging to our country and to how other countries view us. But here's the good news. We've all seen the polls. Leave nothing to chance. Leave it all on the field. Do all that you can to get the vote out. And I will do everything that I can to get the vote out. Get all that we can to get the vote out and win this thing. Democrats win this thing. And then we can take a deep breath. The work won't be finished. There'll still be a lot of work. It's not like these Trumpsters are going anywhere. But we'll hold all the cards. And that's what must happen on Tuesday. And I know I'm going to fight all the way to the finish. And on Tuesday night, when Joe Biden wins, I'm going to be watching Fox News. I'm going to get even with them. Anyway, so let's do this. We have to do this. Tonight, we're going to talk about clubs. We're going to talk about Democratic clubs. I don't know how many of you that are watching are familiar with the way clubs are organized, but I love the clubs. The clubs are just a collection of like-minded individuals that happen to live near one another. Somebody stands up and says, you know what, let's form a Democratic club. Let's find a place to meet at a Mexican restaurant so often and meet once a month and have people come and talk. Let me tell you something. First of all, if you're a member, and I'm a member of the Kingwood Democrats, they're very joyful. And you have a chance to visit with fellow Democrats, which is always just a wonderful way to spend an evening. And speakers come by. And the speakers I have found in the clubs are very informative. It's just a wonderful way to stay involved, stay in the know, and get to know candidates. The other thing I want to say is that if you're a candidate, then you love the clubs, because the clubs are a very friendly way to get out there and talk about what are the vital issues of the day. I can tell you, in 2 statewide campaigns, having gone to as many clubs as I physically could, you learn more than you teach. In other words, the job of the candidate is to say a few words, present their credentials and their reason for running and so forth. But the most important things happen before and after the speech, because you get a chance to listen and find out what's on people's minds, and the policies that you have in mind may make sense in that community. They may not make sense in that community. There may be issues that you're not even aware of. And then the means of communicating. So much of what I've learned over the years in terms of how to communicate on the vital issues of the day is from just comparing notes and working in a very friendly setting with the clubs. So the clubs are so important to candidates. And the last thing I want to say about clubs is this. When I got started in this in 2013, that was our darkest hour in the Democratic Party. And in that race, I ran for comptroller in 2014, and we lost by a lot. We lost by double digits. It was the clubs that held us together. And I immediately after the 2014 campaign, the party sent me around to meet with the clubs and others to talk about why we lost and how do we do better so that this doesn't happen again. If it wasn't for the clubs, we might have collapsed as a party. But the clubs kept us together. And I am just delighted that they did. And now look at the progress that we've made 8 years later, and we're on the very cusp of the state turning blue. I want to say one last thing. With Trump saying that he's going to declare victory on Tuesday night, regardless of the Electoral College vote and where it stands, ignoring all of the state's laws, which rightly allow the canvassing boards to continue to count ballots. When Biden carries Texas, it's game over Tuesday night. So if you're in Texas and listening to this, please just do all you can. Join me and I'll join you, and we're going to go out there and get every single vote we can. And then we're going to win this thing. All right. This is our last, by the way, in this series of events. I'm going to thank our sponsors, as I always do. And I just want to mention to you how much I've enjoyed working with Stephanie and all the others and participating in this. It's been an honor to participate in this, and I thank you so much. So let's thank our sponsors. Here we go. 312th Family District Court Judge Clinton Chip Wells, 270th Civil District Court Judge Deidre Davis. Thank you. Club sponsors. Love the clubs. Bayou Blue Democrats, Maryland Area Democrats, Texas Democratic Women Harris County Chapter, Houston Stonewall Young Democrats, Southwest Democrats, Cy-Fair Area Democrats, Humble Area Democrats, Democratic Club of the Woodlands, Energy and Environmental Democrats, Road Women, Cypress Tomball Democrats, Kingwood Area Democrats, and the Spring Democratic Club. Thanks to the clubs. Royal sponsors, former county clerk, my friend Dr. Diane Troutman, my friend Carl Jones, and my friend Humble Area Democrat President John Cotter. Thank you. Sapphire sponsors, Texas Senate District 3 Committeewoman Shirley Layton, Texas Senate District 7 Democrats, and attorney Mark Whitehead. And finally, organizational sponsors, Powered by People, Harris County Democratic Party, Flip the Texas House, Sisters United Alliance, Swing Left Texas, Indivisible Houston, Blue Action Democrats. Thank you to our sponsors. One last thing. When we get to Wednesday morning, we have to roll up our sleeves and do an after-action analysis of our performance in the state. I believe that we're going to be analyzing our success. President, Vice President, MJ Hager for Senate, right down the line. But we must understand that success is never permanent. And what we do on Tuesday, we must extend to the next election cycle and the next election cycle and the next election cycle. Good must triumph over evil, and that's our job. And so stay tuned. I'll be organizing those meetings, and we'll do an after-action analysis, and I want to hear your point of view. Okay, well, that's all I have to say. It's now my honor to turn it over to two very good friends that I've gotten to know through this process, Mr. Jaime Rodriguez and Carly Mosier.
It is so exciting always to have Mike on. It gives us energy, and it's a boost that we need every week. So thank you, Mike, for always being you.
48 hours. 48 hours. We can do this.
Uh,
I can't
Yeah.
believe we're that close and yet so far away. It feels like a lifetime.
You've been the candidate, Mike. Carly and I are both campaign professionals in the background, so we all three of us know what it's like in these last 48 hours, this final stretch. And that 7 o'clock when the polls close on Tuesday doesn't mean that people are stopped voting. People stay in line until 10 o'clock or midnight, however long it takes to get your actual vote in. You stay in line. It doesn't matter if people have declared victory or not. Whatever happens, stay in line.
Right.
And Tuesday night's going to be a long night. But it could actually go fast. We could actually find out pretty quick that Texas voted so far ahead for Biden that the game was over early.
Well, I'll go ahead and mention this. I said I wasn't going to mention this, but I mentioned this, that we had a press conference and we had a couple of former Republican congressmen, and they were asked that a lot of Republicans are going to vote against Donald Trump. And I'm welcoming them to vote against Donald Trump. They might stay loyal to their Republican Party.
Sure.
But that takes us back to an honest debate. And we can win those honest debates because we have the winning policy. So I'm quite happy to go back to an honest debate. But one of the national news outlets asked whether or not a large number of Republicans are going to vote for Joe Biden, and he said they were. And I'm not going to say what the percentage was because I don't want to give anybody false hope, but it was a large enough percentage to tell me that we have a very good shot at winning if we turn out the vote. And also, what I'm so thrilled by is the young people turning out, right? Mm-hmm. Now, let's be very honest about this. When Joe Biden was not young voters' first choice, and we all know that. And there was a real concern. They like Bernie, and they liked Elizabeth, and I understand. And so there was a real concern. What happens to the young vote if we go to their second choice, Joe Biden? I was very concerned about that. But I will tell you this, they are turning out in unbelievable numbers because they care about their country. They're worried about their country. They're worried about, here's what I hear everywhere I go. They're worried about climate change. They're worried about racism. They're worried about the loss of civility in our country. They don't like the direction. They know that this is theirs. It's not going to be ours much longer. It's theirs. And they are coming out. And that's thrilling.
They are. And not only that, but these are young voters that will turn into great voters for their entire lifetime. I think we're going to see a generational change in the turnout, especially in Texas. So I'm hoping that this is just a sign of great things to come.
Yes, it's very exciting. It's very exciting.
Well, and again, I don't want to go to Wednesday and start talking about 2022 too much, but 2022 is right around the corner. So we don't stop on Wednesday. We don't stop Tuesday night. Tuesday night is this election, the most important election to date. But Wednesday starts the next cycle. And for all of us, we'll have a breakfast to rest. And then by lunch, we're on the go again. So, that's what our week looks like for those of us in the campaign world. And
it's thrilling, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
But Super Bowl Sunday is Tuesday night for us. So let's see what happens. Mike, thank you for all the time and effort you've put into helping us with this whole broadcast series this entire fall. Your clout has helped us get some really phenomenal guests and good viewership. And we really appreciate all your effort.
Thank you for just being a great advocate for voting and for Democrats across the state. It's really been a pleasure.
Well, the pleasure's all mine. I'm honored, and you guys are very kind.
All right. Well, we'll see you again in many future endeavors. We know. So.
Let's go win this.
Thank you, Mike.
All right.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, Carly. So now we have some brand new guests that we've never met before.
We have some great old, I hesitate to say old, but we have some great well-known friends to us.
Wow.
The founders of Blue Outpost Texas Democrats, the clubs are coming together to talk about all kinds of things. Just less than 48 hours before the end of the election, the polls close. I can't believe we're here. And it's our last forum before Election Day.
And really, honestly, it's an important discussion we're going to have tonight. And we're about to introduce these club presidents. But the clubs are the backbone of the Democratic Party in a lot of areas. And you're going to hear all about that tonight. So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and introduce our friends and our co-workers here. Carly, take it away.
All right. First up is Robin Fulford. She is the president of the Democratic Club of the Woodlands with her fantastic RBG collar. Next up, we have Miss Ellie Porras. She is the president of the Kingwood Area Democrats. We also have John Cotter. He is the president of the Humble Area Democrats. And last but most certainly not least, our producer, our woman behind the scenes and all things, Stephanie Bailey, the president of Spring Democratic Club. Hey.
Hey.
Welcome, guests. I know you're new to the show and to the format, but let's walk you through what's going to happen tonight. You know, we do have audience members, and they're going to want to ask questions of you. So, audience, you know the drill. At 8 o'clock, we're going to ask your questions. John Cotter and Ellie are usually the people that send Carly and I your questions. So we're hoping they're still able to do that while they're on the show as guests tonight. They'll be calling through Facebook and doing double duty tonight. Stephanie Bailey is the producer. She's the one that pushes the buttons and gets everybody on and off. So hopefully she'll be able to do that job while we're talking tonight also. And Robin is just, the badass who informs us all about everything going on in the community. And so tonight we'll have a good discussion, but at 8 o'clock, you, the audience, ask your questions. Ask your questions all along in the next hour, and we'll have them ready. But first, we're going to do a little lightning round, and we want to get to know you and let our audience get to know who you guys are right off the bat. So Carly and I are going to ask some quick questions to find out who you are. And Carly, why don't you ask a first question?
First question is, how long have you lived in the district that you are a part of? And we will start with how I brought y'all in. Robin, go first.
I think I've lived here for about 9 years.
Ellie?
I have lived here for 26 years.
All right. John?
It's been 15 years.
Wow. Stephanie?
16 for me.
And so, the drill. We'll do the round robin. We'll start next with Ellie. Ellie, have you ever been elected to anything as an adult?
Nope, just president, but nothing else.
Okay, John.
President of the Humble Area Democrats, and then for a nonprofit historical museum.
Oh, cool.
Okay, Stephanie.
I am a precinct chair, which is an elected position. However, nobody has run against me, so I've never been on the ballot. I was elected president of Spring Dems, and then elected to some professional boards as well.
Okay, and Robin.
So I'm also a precinct chair, also unopposed so far, and president of Democratic Club of the Woodlands, though I'm co-founder, so that's kind of, I guess I was elected last term. And then I was also president or co-president of Mothers of the Woodlands, which is a mother's group.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's great.
Cool.
John, who is your political hero?
Well, that, it goes back and forth all the time. I just finished reading a book by our dear friend, Mike Collier, and I just love everything that he's done for us in Texas. And on a national stage, I like Elizabeth Warren.
Me too. Stephanie?
I'm going to say Barney Frank. And if you haven't read his book, I know it's a strange one.
No, it's a great one.
I've read so much and learned so much about activism from his book, Frank. I recommend it. And hopefully that's not your next question.
Probably the next question. Robin?
I don't know. I have many. I have Gloria Steinem. I have John Lewis. I have.
We can go with just one. That's okay.
Yeah.
All the badasses.
I'm going to go with Robin. There's just so many, but like Eleanor Roosevelt. CBS this morning did a thing about Eleanor Roosevelt and how she always listened and had these great quotes. And I mean, I've been quoting her forever. And then, but then there's so many on top of that.
The first thing Ellie said was, I'm going to go with Robin. And I thought you were going to list Robin as your political hero.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
These club presidents are absolutely my favorite.
So Stephanie, you know that the next question coming is that Democrats and Republicans today differentiate themselves because Democrats like to read.
Yes.
So tell us something that you want us to be reading right now.
I'm actually currently reading Egberto Willies' book about how to talk to your Republican friends and neighbors. And it's good. So, yeah.
Egberto is a great friend of the show also. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, friend of our show.
Robin. Yeah.
Me? Oh my gosh. Well, I used to read a whole lot. Haven't had time. The last book I'm reading is a book by Angela Davis. I don't remember the name because I don't read it over and over. But I've also read Mary Trump's book just to kind of find out how a sociopath operates, really.
Fair enough. Ellie.
I can't remember the author, but it's called White Rage, and it's all the history that is not in the history books that we have not learned about the Black experience in America, and it's pretty disturbing what I thought I knew and what I actually don't know.
John.
Well, I just finished, like I said, I finished Mike's book, Out of Control, which was his story about running for the state controller. But I read Blowout by Rachel Maddow, and it was talking about the oil and gas industry and where they have their fingers in everything worldwide and how they're controlling a lot that happens on a political level.
She's a fantastic writer. She has some really, really compelling stuff. Jaime, where do you want to go from here? We're dealing with friends here, so it's a little bit of a different.
So don't make them cry, Carly. I know that your instinct is to go hard on them, but a few softball questions. You know, the idea tonight is to find out what the heck these clubs are. What is this? In a lot of places, they don't have clubs. They just have the Democratic Party and the party. In fact, look. Someone is just ringing my phone from Dallas, from one of the Democratic clubs in Dallas. That's funny.
Saying, why are we on your show?
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of places you just have the party, and the party has monthly meetings, and that's how this works. But why don't you tell us, and we'll just start with John to keep the round robin process going. John, why don't we start with you? What is it that your club does differently than the Democratic Party would be doing if the party had an arm in Humble?
Well, I look at the clubs as obviously it's local, and so you're up close and get to know all the people in the community, and so we're able to have the one-on-one relationships, a lot more than a countywide or even statewide or national-wide party can. So I like the closeness and, being able to work hand in hand with everybody in the community.
Stephanie, what differentiates a club versus the party doing what you're doing?
We get to focus on our area specifically. So I'm in House District 150, so we've been able to work on our House District 150 and 126 overlaps as well. So concentrating on those candidates and getting to know them in a real relationship. Same with like Michelle Palmer and Jeff Constable. Those candidates, we're able to really concentrate on them rather than people that aren't necessarily in our area.
Robin, your club spans 2 different counties.
That's right.
Yours is an even stranger phenomenon. Talk to us about that.
Right. So the Woodlands includes Harris County and Montgomery County. And so people in the Woodlands typically don't really interact too much with their county parties. It's quite a drive into Houston for Harris County, and Montgomery County, their office is in Conroe. So people don't get there so much. So our club has given an ability for us to create a Democratic community within the Woodlands, to connect and support each other, and also bring candidates in that they would otherwise likely never hear from. So for down ballot races, which we know are so important.
Ellie, your club is one of the oldest clubs of the 4 here, and it's in a very red Republican area. So talk to us about the importance of your club.
Our club has been here for almost 40 years. And because it is so red, there are Democrats that feel like they are the only one. And So why bother voting? So for us, it's important to really be out there, to let them all know that we are here, and that their vote counts. And so, we have been searching for every last Democrat who still thinks they are the only one to get them out to vote.
Those are all great answers. Y'all are so inspiring. I know that for those joining us at home that may not know our area, they represent the suburban areas of Houston. Really to put it kind of bluntly. So the suburban women that we hear Trump talk about a lot are generally, you think about your areas here in Houston. So my question, I know that y'all have all been dealing with a lot of pushback, but what have you found to be a less of a challenge than you expected? Or has there been one? Stephanie.
When we've been doing lit drops, people have been friendly. Like, I feel like people are feeling more comfortable to come out, ironically, during, because there's been so much, nonsense happening, but we've been able to meet some pretty nice people, and we've seen some new stuff come up, like even on Nextdoor, there's a Spring Democrats group now that I had no idea even existed, and it has
that's awesome.
people in about 2 months. So that doesn't sound big, but all of our areas are red, not just Robbins, and not just Ellie's. They're all very, very red. So sorry. So having people see that there are other Democrats and they can feel comfortable and be out about it is refreshing for sure.
Robin?
Yeah, I think that in the beginning, people were a lot more nervous to be out as Democrats. And I would tell people we've been ignored largely by the Woodlands. People assume we don't live here, and that is because we've hidden ourselves. So of course they didn't know we were here.
Right.
So being out has been a big something that I've pushed a lot, and it's becoming so much easier. So we're now having parties at our polls, and the Republicans don't know what to do with it. I mean, they are so shocked by our complete joy and our community that we have. So yeah, it's just kind of all blossomed.
I like that. A lot of joy. Ellie?
It's pretty much the same thing. We started having sign pop-ups, COVID friendly. Everyone had masks, social distancing, but we had candidate signs, we had candidates. And I was really surprised by the amount of people that came out to get signs, to just hang out, because they were like-minded people. We had very, very little pushback from, the other side. And we had a group of women that were tailgating at a sign pop-up. It was really amazing. And so, at first everybody was afraid at the first one. And it was so popular that the fear just went away. And I think we've had 4 or 5 of them. And it's been really amazing.
That's awesome. John?
I'd have to follow on what everybody said, and following on Ellie's pop-ups, we've been doing sign wavings out on a major thoroughfare going through Humboldt and Atascocita, waving candidate signs, and there was a woman selling merchandise, and the positive response significantly outweighed the negative, and so that was a really nice feeling to see.
That's really good to hear.
So Robin,
and we didn't even have to organize a train to do it.
Right.
Robin, you actually helped to organize your club.
Right.
Talk to us about the procedure. Now, all 4 of your clubs are PACs.
Right.
You're not just a group of people who have decided to go show up and drink some beer. Y'all are actually organized. There's a legal club going on here. So Robin, talk to us about this whole procedure.
So, so because I'm a precinct chair, I started going to the Harris County CEC or County Executive Committee meetings, and I realized how clubs are highlighted there, and that we were at a disadvantage because we didn't have a formal organization. So, if you're going to gather in a group and you want to do anything politically, if you are going to collect money, there's a certain threshold, and I think it may change depending on the year, but it was $500. So if you accepted $500, you had to have a PAC. So you had to have a GPAC. And when I was starting club, Democratic Club of the Woodlands, it was soon after it was Beto's campaign, and a lot of people were anti-PAC. So I had to really explain, this legally, this is what we have to do if we're going to put our money together. And after we decided to be a club, as we were doing the paperwork, I already had like people throwing, like they were so excited to get it going that I was like, wait, we've got to do everything by the books. But for Harris County also, Stephanie can speak to this because she was a part of it. The clubs and orgs developed a checklist, and having a PAC was one of those things we needed to check off.
Ellie, you took over a club when you became president, and how did that procedure work? I mean, you sign your name on the paperwork now, or how does this work?
You mean for the PAC?
Yeah.
No, I have not signed on. But I've been the president since May, and seeing as COVID 2020 goes, we haven't had an in-person formal meeting. So I'm sure once we do that, at the pop-ups we haven't thought about that,
But you do collect money. Y'all do have a PAC. Y'all are raising money.
We are raising money. We do have a PAC. We have, and like I said, we've been this way for 40 years, so it's pretty solid in place. But we are raising money for, get out the vote efforts, and they can be expensive. So,
John, you were elected president this year also. How's your experience been? I mean, with the PAC and all that, y'all are raising money also?
Yeah, we're raising money for the get out the vote efforts for literature drops, and to get the people to come out to the polls and educate them how they can find out their voting information. So that's been the primary goal of our fundraising, is just to turn out the vote in our area.
Stephanie, Robin alluded to the idea that in Harris County they have the clubs and orgs meeting every quarter, and you're very involved in that. So talk to us about that a little bit.
Clubs and orgs is interesting. It's not just clubs. So clubs are geographic generally, and organizations are special interests, for lack of a better term. And there are 36, I think, right now, recognized clubs and orgs, maybe 37 in Harris County. So we get together quarterly and share what we're doing, and the party gives us some direction on where we want to go. We do have some loose bylaws that we go by that Robin was talking about, where you have to have 20 members, you have to have raised a certain amount of money, you donate a certain amount of volunteer hours to the party, or money. We each prefer the hours, frankly. Other stuff you have to do to be part of clubs and orgs, but it's become a real family.
So, Ellie, I'm curious, what is the process for you guys in reaching new members, in getting people, finding those people in your areas that you need to get on board and get them to become members of your club and get them active? And what is that process like?
It's changing. It's definitely changed this year. We've done phone banking, looking for Democrats that were not part of the club, Facebook, and we've encouraged, members to go, look for the new neighbor down the street that has a Biden sign, or they had a Beto sign, in their yard. And so word of mouth is very important.
John, what about you?
Well, during our get out the vote efforts, there's text banking and phone banking. When you talk to Democrats that are in the area, we tell them about our club and invite them just to pop into one of our meetings, which is kind of like this. It's obviously we're all virtual meetings right now, so it makes it easy for them to attend and see if they like what we're doing, and just meet more Democrats and like-minded people in our area. And so in the get out the vote effort has actually been a membership drive too.
That's a great point, and that's something that we can all learn from doing that. Stephanie, what about you? What has your experience been like in drumming up new members?
We've been doing with same as these guys, with finding people with phone banks, and then we know this pretty astute political advisor that gave us some advice about getting geo-target marketing, which some of our clubs do. And that has been helpful. We've had over 700,000 eyes on our advertisement before, and since about 2 weeks ago, and we've had over 5,000 people click on our site. So hopefully some of them will start joining us at our meetings. And then with our lit drops that we've been doing, we had a postcard made and we've been leaving our postcards. So hopefully people will find us that way. And we wear our Democratic stuff everywhere when people ask about it, or when I see somebody who's wearing something Democratic, I'm like, do you know that there are Democrats up here? If we have a club? Yeah. Always pitching, always be closing, as they say in sales.
Nobody's a stranger, just a friend you haven't met yet.
Exactly.
Robin, what about you?
So everything everyone has said as well. Well, we also do a day of action. So typically in non-COVID times, we have somebody who coordinates stuff for us to do in the community, so that we always say, so that people realize that Democrats are your neighbors, not just a boogeyman that the GOP makes us out to be. We're your neighbors. We're part of the fabric of the community. So we're volunteering with a kids run, with the Y, or with the Ironman. And we're wearing all of our stuff so people can see that we're out and we're proud of our values and proud of what we stand for. When we do block walking, it's a big part of block walking. We give our information. Our tents are voter support tents. That's a really good membership recruiter for us as well. But like, I think everybody here, our meetings are open to anybody. So you don't have to be a member of the club to attend a meeting or to hear from our guest speakers. But people generally want to join, not just because they have voting rights, but because they want to contribute to the magic of everything that we build.
So, this group here created something unique, even among the clubs and orgs that exist. Y'all put together a whole series of debates and speakers forums this year in 2020. Y'all took it upon yourselves to do this. I don't know who gave y'all permission to do this, but y'all seem to have gone off and on your own rogue and done this. And Stephanie, you were one of the people that kind of started this whole thing, got this thing kicked off back in November, I think, of last year, December. You and Robin were at the forefront of this. Why don't you start off talking to us about what happened in January, what that was like, how that turned into May, and how that turned into the fall. And that way we can get a little history of 2020 real quick.
Why don't I start with May, and then we can go around the horn with the rest.
Go for it.
Otherwise, it's a long story. So back at the end of last year, a lot of stuff in North Harris County, everything happens inside the Beltway. And we felt like we needed to find a way to show that there are Democrats on the north side and really focus on what we were doing. So we held a debate, and we invited all 12 candidates for the Senate debate. And we had 11 forum, not debate. Sorry. Thank you, Robin. Forum. And 11 of them came. There was only one who didn't. And we felt like it was a really good experience. We had about 500 people there. We had over 2,000 people watching online. And after we did that, people were like, wait a minute, you guys, that was really professional and you guys did a great job. And sort of, what are you going to do next? And I guess I will go a little bit into the next part. So then we're like, what are we going to do next? And we said, let's do runoff debates. And then COVID hit. And we had plan A, B, and C, and D. And we went from like plan A to plan D, which is we're going to do it with social distance, and it's going to be fine, to within 5 days, probably, we're like, okay, we're doing it online. And then we had to organize it from there. And we did the local races for House District and all kinds of them. And then statewide races as well. So, and that started in May. And we were asked to do some more in June, and then here we are with this second series. Somebody else can take over.
Robin, take over. Tell us what the fall was like.
Well, I just want to point back to what Stephanie said. In the course of about 5 days, we went from we're doing this in person to modifications to we're doing this online. And one of the things I think Democrats should be really proud of is that we've proven that when we're presented with a challenge, we overcome that very quickly. We're able to problem solve and overcome that quickly. So we did that. And we had a lot of success, and the audience was really receptive to what we did with the runoffs. Our voters, I referred them to those videos, and they told me how helpful that was. And the candidates also found that really helpful. So then that turned into the fall. And so it has just, we found a format that we felt like we really could contribute to the success of 2020. These are skills that we've honed, we've built a team. So how can we use this to benefit candidates and voters who are not interacting with their candidates like they typically would? So it just blossomed from there.
Yeah. And what was funny about it is every time we would send out invites to candidates for new things, it was the 6 clubs that brought you the forums in January and brought you this and brought you that. So we're like, we can't just keep saying we're the 6 clubs. We need a name and we need an identity. That's how Blue Outpost was born.
Right.
And Ellie and John, y'all came in at some point in the spring and started helping out. What got y'all excited about this organization?
Go ahead, Ellie.
Yeah, I was brought in after May, or right at May when I was elected president, and kind of thrown in and said, oh, look what we're doing, and here you're going to help us, and you're going to fundraise, and you're going to talk with candidates. And I was like, oh, yes, I can do this. And I quickly learned a lot about the process, and Stephanie and Robin and John, and just how amazing they are at organizing this, and brought me in, and it's been just an amazing opportunity.
John?
Stephanie and Robin invited our club to participate in the forum that we had in January. And so, as part of the process, bringing it to where we are today, and it's been very enlightening. It's been such a pleasure to work with these people, because they became my friends, and that's the best part out of all of this. But we've got to share, the statewide candidates. We gave them a voice so they could meet the voters, because they couldn't go out and meet the voters the way we used to do it. They used to talk about, like what Mike was saying, you get to come to the club and, have dinner and talk and visit. And, that was taken away from us this year. And this platform has allowed the candidates to have the voice to reach the voters on a wide scale.
Well, and to be fair, we've gotten to the point where now on a normal night, we have around 500 viewers, but we've had as many as 1,500 or 2,000 viewers watching the show. So if you're a candidate at any level, this is a phenomenal format for you to be able to join and get your message out. I know the statewide candidates appreciate it. People outside of Texas, and even people in Texas, might not realize that Harris County accounts for 1 in 5 voters in the state of Texas and 1 in 3 Democrats in the state of Texas. So if you're a Democratic candidate and you're skipping Harris County, you've missed quite a lot. Yeah. So we've given you a platform and a place to come and welcome you heartily to come to Harris County, come to Texas, and talk to us. So okay, that now the audience understands a little better who's been behind the scenes on all of this. Carly?
Well, I am curious about what it's like for y'all now that you've all become these amazing presidents of these great clubs, and then you're slammed shut with COVID. I know that Democrats tend to be very personable. Like in person, we like to dance and touch and see each other and be together, and that's really not necessarily a possibility at this moment. So I want to know what our viewers at home say they want to start their own little club and wherever they are. How do they do that now? Robin?
Okay. Well, during COVID in the beginning, we didn't know how we were going to connect with people, because we're not, as most Democrats, we were taking and are still taking this very seriously. We're following social distancing guidelines. We're masking up. We're not going door to door. And that was one of the joys of how we really connected with people. But there are all of these online communities, all of these different Facebook pages where you can start interacting and forming relationships with people all across your area. So I have friends in all of these different pockets of activism and just regional groups. And so that's a way that we really build up and connect. And then doing live Facebook feeds where you may be covering something and you invite people in to interact with you. So it's been a process of figuring out how to connect, because one of the things we do in our meetings, one of the things that I always say is we need to be proud of our values. We are Democrats. This is something worthwhile, worth celebrating, worth being out and proud about. And so having that motivational speech in our meetings that typically we do face to face has been a real challenge. But bit by bit, we're kind of figuring it out. And it is wonderful to see the fruits of our labor at the polls. And in fact, I think last week I met somebody who I hadn't met her before, but she had heard from Krista Castaneda from our forum. She had never heard her speak. So connection will happen. You have to just get yourself out in front of people as much as possible and then build on that community.
Ellie, what do you think? How do we build how do you start a club during this time?
Really, what Robin said, you just have to, step out of your comfort zone and meet people where they are. You have to understand that you're going to have, maybe an older generation that isn't technically inclined, and then a younger generation who is going to technically surpass you. and you have to be able to kind of meet them where they are. And that's somewhat challenging, but, that's what we've been trying to do.
John, what do you think?
Well, I was fortunate the club was already started, so we just had to adapt from meeting in person to the online situation. Starting in the virtual realm is going to be very difficult. Doesn't mean you can't do it, though. So you find a couple people to get together and say there's a need in the area. It's like, let's find our friends, and you can start the club that way.
Yeah. Stephanie, what do you?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, John, keep going.
I was going to say it could be as simple as like these meetup groups. So you just start out that way, and then you can put an organizational structure behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say leverage Meetup, Nextdoor, other social media, not just Facebook, Twitter. What's that?
Phone banking.
Phone banking, of course. Yes. The other thing I would do is talk to candidates and see if they're willing to share some of their contacts, because it's been interesting. So we have so many groups that have formed, Swing Left Texas, Empowered by People, and all these groups that are spread out and disparate, and they still could be involved within clubs as well. And we can overlap and collaborate on the work. So even having relationships with other organizations and letting them know what you're up to and inviting them to your stuff. We all like to attend each other's meetings and invite people in those regions or with those interests into those meetings too. Mostly don't. There's two things that I'm learning right now in the way things are going with COVID and doing things virtually is don't get distracted, keep focused, and know that what you're doing is the right thing, whether people are there or not. Whether you have 500 people or 20 people, you're still doing what's right.
You know, what's funny is this club's discussion is actually a lot bigger than it seems just by talking here. You know, the idea that Trump, you've heard him talking about Antifa, and you've heard him talking about BLM, Black Lives Matter. It's definitely just brought up a whole nother sector, which are not official Democratic Party clubs. They're organizations that are progressive organizations like Swing Left and some of these other ones that Move On was one of the big ones back in the 90s after Bill Clinton was impeached. And so these organizations are not officially part of the Democratic Party, and yet they are progressive in nature and try to push progressive causes. A lot of times they say they're bipartisan or nonpartisan for reasons of legal reasons. And what ends up happening is the right doesn't understand this plethora of organizations and clubs that exists on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, they have something called the pachyderm clubs. Pachyderms, of course, being the name for elephant, the scientific name for elephants. So the pachyderm clubs meet all over the country. And they have breakfast pachyderm clubs, noon pachyderm clubs, and dinner pachyderm clubs, just like civic organizations. So you might have the Breakfast Lions and the Noon Lions Club or the Rotary Club or the Kiwanis Club. They have the pachyderm clubs, and they meet weekly. They meet every single week. And they have lunches. They have guest speakers. They raise money. They do all of that, but all in the name of pachyderm clubs. And so this idea that there are 100 different organizations within the Democratic Party that you could choose to join, that would be a special interest group for you, it's just anathema to them. It's something so wildly different that it becomes this scary thing. And they are literally fighting against clubs and orgs. When you hear them talking about fighting Antifa or Black Lives Matter or Swing Left, or they are literally fighting against the way Democrats organize themselves. And so this is why this discussion tonight is so important, because I know that the four people that you hear right now are not used to being on camera, so they're not as excited and fun as we are off camera. Off camera, we are jokesters and crazy people, and they are the leaders of their clubs for a reason. They can energize a room, they're but. Yeah, on camera, it's a little different, I know, because you're on record forever, right? And
are we being boring, Jaime? Is that what you're trying to say? Because we can have a party right now. Like, turn on the music.
You're not the Democratic Party.
I'm just pointing out that this club discussion is actually a very important discussion. It's very big. It's very big. And if you don't have a club or you're not a member of a Democratic club yet or organization, you should really check into them, because there are a lot of organizations in your area. There might not be clubs in your area, but I guarantee you there are organizations in your area that are organizing on behalf of certain special interests. And if you want to start a club, there is nothing stopping you from starting your own PAC, starting your own club, organizing with your county party. You are not competing against your county Democratic Party. And if someone makes you feel like you're competing, put them in check. Tell them we are Democrats. This is how we organize. Your neighborhood has plenty of Democrats, more than enough Democrats to have 20 or 30 people coming to club meetings every month or every week. There's no problem. A typical precinct will have several hundred Democrats in it. That's a precinct. That's a neighborhood. And a club usually represents a dozen or more precincts. So, there's plenty of opportunity to get people involved and excited about what's going on. And tell me if I'm wrong, anybody. Yeah.
As a producer, I have to jump in and say that's why we've had so many great clubs as sponsors along the way. Almost every club in Harris County has sponsored this series in some part. because we all are working together, right? And we all have the same goal.
I mean, that's really
Stronger together.
stronger together is that really smart lady once said.
I heard that once.
From some lady that was really, really smart. She's very educated.
Yeah.
I would like y'all, my experience as an organizer within the party structure is that, y'all have all said phone banking at some point tonight, and nobody wants to phone bank. So I need y'all to give some pep talks for GOTV on like phone banking and best practices, and why should people not be scared about this weird thing called the phone that we use to call each other and not just text? What is up with that? So, Ellie, you got any good words about phone banking?
I do have some good words. I will say that I started off to phone banking. I didn't want to call people. I was afraid they were going to be mean or, not answer. And I had a day where I was not having a good day. I woke up not having a good day, but I had set up this phone bank so I had to go.
Oh no, did she freeze?
Uh-oh.
Did we lose people? No.
There she is.
Ellie, start over again. You froze for a second.
Oh no. So I had this woman that answered the phone, and she was talking about her aunt, that her aunt had just died 10 days prior. And the last thing she wanted to, she asked was for the TV to be turned on so that she could listen to Biden speak, and that she knew that the country could do better than Trump. And then she went to sleep and died. And so the woman was trying to get her niece, registered to vote or get her mail-in ballot. I think it would get her mail-in ballot because she was away on a trip. And that just made my whole day and made every phone banking worth it, because then I look for those phone calls, and every time I phone banked, I have gotten those phone calls. So yeah, I might get someone who says wrong number, or I'm a Republican, but I get 4 or 5 that are just so excited. They have questions that we can answer, and find them, because the phone banks give you good training before you start. So and there's support along the way.
John, what are your words of encouragement for people that are terrified to phone bank?
Well, everybody's worried about the people that'll be mean, and those people are out there. There's nothing you can do about that. They're just having miserable lives, and don't let that bother you. So we'll continue calling our friends and supporters, because if you can help them find their polling location or answer a question, if they haven't registered to vote when we were doing phone banking early on, and you help them get registered, that's what it's worth. And that's what it's really about.
It really is. Stephanie, what do you think?
You just got to stay with it, right? I mean, when you reach, like what Ellie said, when you reach somebody who's super glad you called and you got to share with them information, or they just wanted to vent about what's happening in their lives, or sometimes they just need a friend, and you're that familiar face for a friend. It's not always 100% political.
Right.
Yeah. And just, I don't know, it's rewarding when people are like, I am so glad you called, and I'm going to go vote on Tuesday. You do get a few jerks. Some people decide that they want to vote in our primary, so they show up as Republicans when we try to vote or call them rather. And I can say it in here. I try really hard not to say, quit voting in our primary. We'll quit calling you anything. Don't go out here. I'll go click, and then I'll say, don't vote in our primary.
I love that. Robin, tell me how we encourage these people to get on the phones and make these calls for the next, what do we have, 47 hours?
Yep. So one of our of the members of our Club Connect team. So we have a few people in our club that are tasked with welcoming people in. And a woman named Betty Darty, I believe she's the one that came up with the term dialing for democracy. So we're not just phone banking, we're dialing for democracy. This is how you're making a change. And we've also found that when you're calling, people will be a little shy of admitting what party they're with.
Right.
But if I say I'm Robin, I'm calling with Democratic Club of the Woodlands and not just party.
Right.
People loosen up. They wanna talk. And if they're Republicans, they get off pretty. I mean, you just say, okay, have a great day, and you're done. But you get to spend time. There are so many people that are so excited to hear from you. You will be shocked, quite frankly, at the number of people that will answer their phone. And when they're answering their phone and they lean your way and they find out that there are Democrats in their area, they're so excited. Some of them will keep you on the phone for a while, telling you all sorts of things. You'll learn stuff about your area. You may learn stuff about some of the opponents in your area that you otherwise wouldn't have known. So it is just such an opportunity. And I do not love talking on the phone at all. And despite Jaime having long conversations with me.
I was like hours and hours of that.
Yes.
And you're telling me you don't like, okay,
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I like talking to you. I typically don't enjoy talking on the phone. It's
At least one person likes talking to me. That's nice.
yeah, I don't love it. And a lot of people don't, but it is that connection, that relief people have when they've connected with you. Or the woman who said that she could not wait to vote Donald Trump out of office because she and her husband own a small business that has been hurt so severely by COVID.
Right.
Son is a teacher and is having to deal with going back and those risks. And she was so excited to talk to me, but she was so upset and so stressed out. And so hearing that there's not just another Democrat that's calling me, but there's a whole bunch of Democrats that are reaching out to other Democrats is a huge relief.
You know, we're starting to get audience questions in now, and it is that 8 o'clock hour. So we're going to start asking those questions. But before we do, I have one more question. I want to direct it to Ellie to give us a little bit of information on the power of collectivism, of us getting together and organizing in this way of mobilizing our efforts. Tell us about Natalie Hurtado's race. This is a state house race in Texas, and a lot of clubs and orgs in the region who are not necessarily in her state house district have come together to do a lit drop. Tell us about that lit drop and what that was like. Ellie?
Yeah, and if I leave anything out, John can follow up because we were working as a team. So they did, there were several groups, multiple groups in the area that targeted this voter registration and for 100,000 lit drop. And you know, John Cotter's club and my club got together and organized how many we were going to do and how many volunteers we were going to need and where we were going to go. And at first they were like, well, we'll do 7,000. I was like, holy mother, 7,000. And then, okay, we can do that. And then after like 2 weeks, I think Jackie called and says, oh no, we're going to do 20,000. It's okay. We're going to do 20,000. Well, we had so many volunteers and it so well organized that we did finish 20,000 out of 100,000, all in Natalie Hurtado's district, and 2 weeks early. It was really amazing, and because people really wanted to help, and this was something we could do. It was no contact. Everyone wore masks and gloves, and it was challenging and just amazing.
And Jackie Hazelwood comes out of John's club. John, talk to us about Jackie and how she organized and how you helped her organize, and how did that go?
Well, Jackie pretty much ramrodded the whole thing because she's just amazing at the organization, and she can bring the team together. So I just sit by the sides and watch because she did really good work for our club and for everybody. But the idea of what Ellie's talking about, the literature drop, it was actually mail-in registration forms that would go on the doors of apartments. Because when people live in an apartment, that's short term. Like I said, I live in my area for 15 years. It's been in the same house. But if you're in an apartment, you may move around a little bit more. And so you have to register when you move to your new apartment because you got a new address. And so that was the target, is to target those 20,000 apartment it was 20,000 complexes, but 20,000 apartments, all in Natalie Hurtado's district. And so Jackie was working with another club. They built the targets, and she would send out the call for volunteers and know how many people she would have on the weekend days to build how many the places they could target. And the turnout was phenomenal. And like Ellie said, they started at 7,000, and it was right at 20,000 between our two clubs in that HD 126 race.
But all the clubs in Harris County together put out about 100,000 of these, right? In apartment complexes all around Harris County. So, 37 clubs put out 100,000 voter registration cards at apartment complexes in a matter of a few weekends. That's the power of organizing into clubs. That's why it's so important.
Well, grassroots organizing is truly the voice of the people. Like, it's the voice of the people that live in those communities. And these wonderful, fine human beings are great examples of what it means to just take it upon yourself to just jump in and do the work. And if you're talking, if Harris County did 100,000 and y'all did 20 of those 100, that's a gigantic push. Why is it so important for y'all to do lit drops and stuff like that for districts that aren't yours?
I'd like to make a point, if you don't mind, that Jackie is a perfect example. So Jackie was part of our original crew planning these events back at the end of last year. And she decided she wanted to put her focus into doing the lit drops instead.
Mm-hmm.
Example of find what motivates you and put all your energy in that. And so
Right.
the three of us were able to do this, focus on this, and those two clubs were able to do the lit drops. We did our own version that was not nearly as big of something like that. And all the clubs are doing that kind of stuff. But the point about it is and it goes back to what makes you successful, right? Find what motivates you and how you can get other people motivated and what fires you up, and go with it. So kudos to
That's a good point.
Yep. Okay, back to you.
Well, we do have some questions coming in from the audience. So the first question we have is, what do you think is preferable within the county party system? Bigger clubs, like a few big clubs, or lots of little clubs? And we'll start with Robin.
I think it just depends on what your goal is. Our goal is not to our Democratic Club of the Woodlands is all about us finding community, and we don't necessarily we don't want to be kingmakers. We don't want to be queen makers. We don't want to be the dictators of what happens in our area. We want to support candidates. We want to really grow leadership. And because our club was the only club in Montgomery County that had a PAC, we really set ourselves up. We wanted there to be other clubs that would pop up. I even mapped out everything that we did so that we can show that to anybody who's interested in starting another club. We want to build other areas so that we can work together. We can't hit every area. As we know, especially in get out the vote efforts, you're block walking. or you're lip dropping, still you're having to travel everywhere, or your phone. And it's really hard to do that for a large swath of area. It's easier to manage if it's focused.
That's a good point. Ellie?
I would say that, and it's similar to Robin, like you need to have a bigger club that can help support smaller clubs that's like fan out. So that, because like Robin said, you can't be everywhere, and the different clubs are going to have different creative ideas, and they have different demographics, and so that they can do things in their area that best suits them, but they can have a bigger club down the street that can help to support them and, be there for them.
John?
I think the small clubs work very well because you're really involved with your community and you know the people that live there. But then your small clubs can come together like we've done here for bigger activities. And I think that's a good formula. I mean, there's a place for both, but my preference, I don't know if that's the right word. I think the small clubs work really well. And we've proven with this group that when we work together, our voice is a lot bigger.
Stephanie?
I think there's a couple things. We all are focused in our area. I talked about it earlier. We're able to concentrate on our particular area. When you have a large group, it's harder to figure out where you're going to focus. But the bigger part of that is we're part of a whole nother structure. There's the county party. We have Senate districts, the precinct chairs. There's the county executive committee. There's all this different stuff that we all do within the party structure that's separate from what the clubs do. And we're trying to get the clubs to work together more, as you've seen with this effort. So I think that we can do what we want to do, but we can also join with other people, right? So we always can grow if we need to.
A form of the question that's been asked by the audience member, that the audience member wants to know what's the best structure for club success going forward. And I would ask it this way. I remember growing up as a child, my dad was a member of the Lions Club, the Noon Lions Club. And so once a week on a whatever Wednesday, they would go to the Holiday Inn and have, lunch there with the group. And there might have been 40, 50 guys that got together and they had a program. But that same Holiday Inn hosted the Breakfast Lions Club on Tuesday morning and the Evening Lions Club on Thursday night. And it served the same community. It's just that people have different schedules and different opportunities. And I know that a lot of times our clubs meet once a month on let's say Monday night. And if you're not available on Monday night, you'll never be able to be a member of that club. So I have heard it argued that we already have too many clubs in Harris County, for example, that it's already unwieldy. It's already too big. But we have millions of voters in Harris County. When you're telling me 37 clubs is enough to handle millions of voters, I just don't see it. I don't buy it. I was a member of the Boy Scouts of America for a long time. I can tell you in the Boy Scout structure, they can have 30 or 40,000 Boy Scouts in Houston, all set up into weekly club meetings. We don't have 30 or 40,000 Democrats meeting weekly. And there is no reason why we couldn't. Tell me your thoughts on that, the structure of clubs and orgs going forward. Wouldn't it be a bigger and better, bolder backbone for the Democratic Party if we were to advocate for more rather than maintaining where we're at? And Robin, we'll start with you because I see your head nodding.
Yeah, I think so. With our club, one of the things that we, right before COVID hit, is we were going to offer daytime meetings for a lot of the parents or some of our older members to meet during the day. We had socials, like coffee socials that were during the day, and then also happy hours aside from our monthly meetings. Because sometimes if you have a lot of stuff to cover in your monthly meeting as well, you don't get enough time to socialize. So there are so many different pockets of needs, different amounts of, connecting that different people need or have time for. I feel like Baytown, their club developed, we need that. They're powerful and they're thriving and they're doing great stuff in the area. I had a club member, actually, one of my leaders, moved to Baytown, and during the hurricane, I was able to connect with the treasurer of Baytown, who went and checked on my club leader, who was then a member of Baytown. It's such a community, and I think it's important that if there's a group of people and they have a vision and they want to start a club, that we support that.
Ellie, I know that your club not only has the meeting once a month, but y'all have started doing social hours weekly or bi-weekly to kind of do this kind of format.
We were doing our once a month club meeting, and then once a week social hour, and then all the get out the vote efforts kind of took over for that for now. But then we also have a book club that meets once every couple months. And so there's little offshoots to keep everybody happy and keep everybody informed. And then, so next door to Kingwood is Huffman and Crosby. And we had a woman come to our pop-up saying that, well, she's from Crosby and she's the only one, or, a handful. And so, we've been talking to her about her starting her own private Facebook group and adding a couple people, and then they adding a couple people until they get a big enough where they can start their own group, but we can help support them, while they're in their beginning stages.
Cool. John, what do you think about having multiple clubs in Humble?
Well, in Humble specifically, or Harris County, Jaime?
Sure. Well, in Humble, is there room for multiple clubs? I know that y'all have an activist group that has kind of popped up on Facebook that's kind of separate. It's not formally a club, but
Correct.
But it seems to be thriving, and it seems like there's room for more.
There is.
Yeah.
It's like what Ellie was saying. If there's a group of people that want to get together and have a vision that's separate from any one of our clubs, we should encourage that and help facilitate that if we can.
Talk to us about the activist group that has popped up in your area.
And so that started actually 2 years ago with the 2018 election, and they started out doing block walking and talking to voters that way, and it's just expanded. And that was the plan for 2020. And of course, the coronavirus changed all that. And now they've been working with the literature drop, with the registration, the pop-ups, and text and phone banking has been the strong suit for that this year.
Stephanie, what do you think about having multiple clubs in your area? Is there room in Spring for some more democracy?
No, and we got it all. No, I say that. There probably is. I think it would be more for what people are interested in than geographic at this point. I think geographically, we're pretty well represented, and we've been around for 16 years now. And so I feel like probably we could work with some groups that had special interests they wanted to do. But geographically, I think I actually like the way we're doing it. I like the Spring identity we have. So
a lot of different opinions of how this works going forward. I mean, yeah.
I will say, Stephanie, so the Woodlands, we have some spring in the Woodlands.
You do.
Right?
Yep.
But when we popped up, Stephanie has referred people to us, and we've referred people to Stephanie.
Yeah.
It has been a great relationship, as you can see.
We're like this. That is true. But to the same point, that's a completely different sort of demographic, right? And you cover the Woodlands, which is different than you are spring, but different than spring, proper spring, right?
So tell us some of the experiences you've had talking to candidates and inviting candidates to your clubs. It's not always a positive experience, I know. Sometimes the candidates have not maybe been as excited about coming to your club. Your club only has 20 people, and I'm going to drive all the way out to the middle of nowhere to talk to 20 people. I mean, especially in the time before COVID. How does that make you feel? How does that make the candidate look in the eyes of your voters? Maybe talk to candidates right now for a second, because brand new crop of candidates are about to appear on Wednesday for 2022. Let's give them a little bit of incentive to come see you guys. Ellie, why don't we start with you?
Well, remember now that I've only been the president during COVID, so I can only speak for our COVID times. And so I've been lucky in that it's all been virtual, and we've had a lot of candidates that have been able to come because it is virtual. And I will say that when the more a candidate comes to the meetings and really gets to know us and we get to know them and how we can help them, we are inspired to help them more because we know them. We have a relationship with them. If you just show up at the last minute and be like, here's my push cards, I need you to phone bank for me. You know, like, yeah, okay. We're not as inspired. I mean, we'll do it, but you'll get more out of us if you have a relationship with us.
John, you agree with that?
Oh, I do. The whole point is for the candidates to come out and build that relationship with the voters. And if they don't see the value of your 20 voters maybe at a meeting, frankly, I think shame on them. We had a House district in 2018 that was decided by 47 votes. So don't tell me 20 voters aren't important. And our people will talk to their friends. And so soon those 20 people turn into 40 and 60 and 100 votes. And in the time of COVID, when we're doing virtual meetings, there's really not an excuse to show up.
Stephanie, these 20 people that are at your club meetings are 20 Democrats who want to show up to a Democratic meeting. I mean, these are the most activist of all active Democrats. Why wouldn't you want to go see them?
Exactly. And John said what I was going to say, which is those numbers are exponential, right? They told 2 friends who told 2 friends who told 2 friends. So that number grows. We have pictures and we brag about the candidates who come to the meetings, and, you know, they get a little extra social media, which grows. So they have no idea how many people they're missing out on if they don't come to a 10 or 20 or 30 meeting.
Mm-hmm. Robin, you've had some pretty prominent candidates skip your meetings.
I have.
And I actually name names, but what does that feel like?
Well, that gets people really excited. But like, I want to refer to Michelle Palmer, who has commented. I mean, Michelle, and especially when we have a county like Harris County, where we have the longest ballot in the country, and that is pretty consistent for us. But all of us can point to Michelle Palmer and talk about her like we can fangirl about her, because she has come to all of our meetings. She participates. And so whenever we're talking to voters, we have this long ballot, but we're definitely going to tell people why they should be voting for Michelle Palmer.
Right.
For State Board of Education. So
Position 6.
Right. Position 6. That's why it matters, right? Because we can say that right off the top of our heads. You know, some of the judges, Judge Davis, Judge Deidre Davis, and Judge Ursula Hall, they come to our meetings. I've seen them at Road Women. This all matters because we can talk about them right off the tip of our tongues. And we are talking to voters. And at our club meetings, we have precinct chairs. We have people that are going to hold meet and greets for you, whether it's virtual or in their homes, not in COVID times. That's why it's important. At our very first Democratic Club of the Woodlands meeting, Mike Collier came and spoke. And we all have gotten to know Mike, but Mike is an incredible incredible speaker as well as candidate. And that just excited people to get to connect. It's just important. So we help the candidates, and then when we do have larger candidates, or candidates that have a huge following for whatever reason, whether it's a beta or so then that also helps us.
And we will shout out Michelle Palmer as much as possible. She's been a guest on our show twice this year, once during the primary debates and once here in the fall. And excellent answers all the way through. It made a lot of sense what the State Board of Education does and what she would do once she got elected. I think a lot of viewers were enlightened because she decided to put herself out there. And that's what happens when these candidates put themselves out there and let themselves be questioned by regular everyday Democrats and regular everyday folk. It humanizes the candidates and it more fairly represents democracy. I mean, that's the whole point, right? We want to
believe that Michelle was asked to run by members of a particular club here in Harris County. They pushed her to put her name because we all need to elect a teacher to the State Board of Education. So, that is the value, is that you have these club leaders that they know talent, they see talent, they know talent, they know what policy is, they know who's going to actually put in the work for the constituents that they work with. And that's where the value is. And it's just exponential every time. And all of these clubs, you have friendlies, they're on your side. That's great. You know that you can practice your messaging on these lovely, friendly people that share your same values. And then you can come out there and you can make your campaign pitch and do all that good stuff, and then get yourself 10 volunteers like that.
And nobody can talk about the importance of a candidate's race better than that candidate, about what they do, why their position is important, why they're the person that would do that job better. I mean, we all have an idea and hear from them, but nobody can do it better than they do.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, we only have 5 minutes left. So, this hour and a half goes by so fast. And I know that when you're on the production team, it might feel like it drags on because you're pushing buttons and getting all the. But for those of us on the front of the camera, man, it goes by so fast. There's never enough time to ask the questions we want to ask. But Carly, do you have one last big question you want to ask everybody, and then we'll give everybody a time to sign off.
What is the one thing everybody can do for your club today? Ellie?
What is the one thing everybody can do for my club today?
Mm-hmm.
Like my members, or just
whatever your heart desires, Ellie.
Oh, my heart desires. Come become a member and get involved. We have open volunteer positions available for membership drives, for fundraising, for I want to start a legislative committee that just focuses on what's happening in the legislation that can report back to the club. Do we need to run to Austin and shake up some shit? Like that, that's something that I really want to, start, and that we've got to start that soon. And there's so many different things, so many different committees that we can start, that we just need you to come, become a member, and then tell us what you're interested in. What do you want to do? What do you, where's your passion that we can help you obtain?
John, what's the one thing everybody can do for your club today?
Well, I think Ellie picked the best one, because we all want more members and we want people to bring their perspective to our club and share it. So I'm not going to steal her thing. So if you're asking what can they do for us today, show up on Tuesday if you haven't voted already.
Stephanie?
I'm going to piggyback and not steal either of their thunder and say, and bring your friends to vote on Tuesday.
Robin?
And I'm going to say, that the single biggest thing that you can do right now, because our focus is this election on Tuesday, is phone bank or dial for democracy. I know that's not doesn't sound sexy, but that's what we need help with the most right now.
And I'm going to say donate and become members of each of these clubs, because obviously the presidents are amazing and very dedicated and very focused on what the goals are for all of our shared moral values. Dial for democracy. Do that. Make those phone calls. We only have, oh God, I don't even want to say it anymore. We have less than 47 hours. So
we are hours away from the election of a lifetime, and the group here is in Harris County, which is in the eastern part of Texas. It is the largest county in Texas, one of the largest counties in America. It represents 1 in 5 votes in the state of Texas, 1 in 3 Democrats in the state of Texas. We see and feel the thunder that's happening. The excitement is electric. And the next few hours are going to be sleepless, I think, for most of us, restless, until Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, when the sun rises and America is back to normal, and it's excitement again. We know that the work has to be done, and the club organizational style is something that we recommend to you, the viewer, no matter what part of the state you're in, no matter what part of the country you're in. If you haven't thought about it before, think about it going into 2022. It's a great way to support the Democratic Party. Stephanie, you're the one that kind of brought this little hodgepodge group together. I'm going to give you the last word. You have 30 seconds, and then that's the end of the last show that we're doing for 2020.
I'm going to give myself a break and not Zoom on me like I have everyone else who has. I will share it with the 5 of you. I don't want to look at myself that closely. If you want to start a club, you have 4 great references here. Reach out to Blue Outpost if you want to reach any of us, and we're happy to help you. Robin, as she mentioned, has a head start with that for her map. I'm very familiar with the Harris County clubs and org structure. Ellie knows about taking over an existing club and reinvigorating it. John, the same. Carly's on the board of a club as well, and they're rebranding themselves. So all of us have some pretty good expertise we're happy to share. So please reach out to us if you need any help. And this is our last one. Thank you, Jaime and Carly, for being amazing moderators. Their vote necklaces. I'll show off my Blue Texas earrings. And so thank you all for joining our series. We will start back up in probably January with stuff to do with the legislative session. So please stay tuned. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
go vote.
Thanks, everybody.